Warning: the following program is solely intended for a mature audience. Any of the idiotic opinions and views expressed on this show are solely opinions of Dark Fringe Radio and not of its advertisers, which is completely pointless because this poorly produced, dumbass podcast has no advertisers.
I'm sorry, son. But we do have an advertiser now, AmpSmart. So, yeah. Sorry. Go back to your thing.
Furthermore, any rebroadcast or redistribution of Dark Fringe Radio podcast without the permission is strictly prohibited. If you do, we will find you. And then we will send 3 black-eyed children to your home or office to collect your soul. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
Coming to you live from the Mistopheles Studios, it's Dark Fringe Radio.
And welcome to Dark Fringe Radio. I am your host, Will Martinez, and thanks for joining on the podcast. We got an extra special podcast for you tonight. And of course, my co-host with me, as always, Jay Galosi. Jay, what's up?
How's it going, my man?
Awesome, man. Just rocking, man. This is going to be a great episode. This week we got basically listener, stories, and we're going to be talking about scary stories. So it's going to be
That's
interesting.
right. It's all on the listeners this week.
Absolutely. So we depended on you guys, and you guys came through, and it was great. Listen, thank you guys for sending in these stories. It really helps out a lot, and it helps us give more entertainment for you, the other listeners, and to hear these stories. So we'll be talking about those tonight, and of course our personal stories. I'm sure Jay has a few, and I know I have a couple. So we have a couple things up our sleeve. So let's start off with the social media. Of course, as always, Jay, everybody can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and also Twitter. So please do that. Just look up Dark Fringe Radio. Please like and share all the stuff that we put out there on a daily basis. I've been kind of slacking the last 5-10 days because I've been traveling a lot lately, but I've been posting a lot of stuff where I've been traveling to. I don't know if you've seen, Jay, I was in Louisiana just past few days.
I did.
Yeah. So
I did. I was mad jelly. I've been in Jupiter.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was a pretty interesting place, man. I can tell you, the atmosphere is definitely different there. But I ran into a couple different cool spots there. First place I stopped at was the Museum of Death, which it was a museum basically of just different things that was associated with death, basically. So you had like these artwork that was done by serial killers that was sent in, and they bought and they collected throughout the years. Also, like letters from serial killers. They actually put them up on the wall. A lot of autopsy pictures, pretty gruesome stuff. A lot of crime scene photos and accident scene photos. They actually had one of Charlie Manson's actual prison shirt up on display. It was really cool. They actually had a coffin in there that belonged to somebody. I couldn't remember off the top of my head who it belonged to, but it was a coffin. And then in the far back, Jay, they had this fucking weird like extra room, and it had like pews like a church, and then it had a big screen TV against the wall, right, Jay? And it was just playing continuously, just videos of like gruesome shit that happened, like a fucking like elevator accident, and like the people going in there and like picking up the limbs and shit like that, and a body floating in a river, and it's just like wow. So yeah, it was a pretty
sounds like good, clean, wholesome family fun. Yeah. Take the kiddies out.
Yeah.
They'll never fucking sleep again.
Exactly.
That sounds like a greate place to go hang out. I think I'm gonna go take my sleeping bag and spend the night there.
Oh,
sounds
dude.
so fun.
Well, listen. Also, to caveat this, on top of just an extra, cherry on top for all this, I actually talked to the guys that run the place, and they're actually willing to possibly come on the podcast and talk about it. So I was able to pitch that, and they said, hey, they'd be open to it. So hopefully we'll have them here on the podcast in the next few weeks, and interview and talk about their museum. They have that one there in Louisiana. They also have one in California. So they have 2 locations. It's a great place, really just dark and macabre. But yeah, another place I ran into was Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo. I stopped by there. A lot of cool stuff in there. I mean, anything that you could possibly imagine, Jay, that is associated with voodoo. Candles, spells, oils, incense, spell books, just anything possible you can imagine. Really cool place. It's just cool to see all this different stuff. and see, that side of Louisiana, of course. So yeah, a couple different places I stopped by there, Jay, and that's what you can expect by going on our social media, stuff like that we share all the time. So another thing I wanted to mention, how to listen to the podcast, Jay, very simple. It's very simple. All they have to do is go to our website, and it's darkfringeradio.wordpress.com, and right on there, all they have to do is scroll right down to the middle of the page, and they can choose where they want to listen to the podcast. There's all different places you can listen to the podcast. Talk about iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all those different places, SoundCloud, iTunes. I think already, Google Play. But yeah, you can check out our website again. It's darkfringeradio.wordpress.com, and check that out there. You can listen to the podcast straight through there, and also see all the latest things that we're always posting, and photos in our gallery, and all our interviews go up there as well. So check it out. So also, Jay, I wanted to mention you also have a little side thing going here too, and I wanted to bring it up and kind of throw it over to you. But you have a YouTube channel that you've created, and tell us about it, and tell us where we can find it. Tell us some more about it.
The YouTube channel, the show is called Imagine Play with Coach Jay. As many of you might know, or probably don't know, some of our newer listeners, I've worked with kids for almost 20 years. As you've heard on podcasts, I've got all these different voices, and I'm a generally fun and goofy character, and that's been very beneficial to me at work. And what I've decided to do was go ahead and take some of that showmanship and bring it down to an easy way to reach kids to help them grow cognitively, mentally, emotionally. Reading books is so monumental for children, and they're always in the tablets. They're watching people open toys, and they're watching people play with cars. They're not really watching anything that's really enriching them. So with Imagine Play, what I've done is, and a lot of the first videos going up are going to be raw. You're going to have to be a little bit patient with us. But when it gets there, the content will definitely be worth it. If you go to YouTube, you will find Imagine Play with Coach Jay. Should be some new videos coming up, but it's going to be so great, from reading books to singing songs, to even going out on adventures and helping them use their imagination in different ways instead of just droning on into a tablet.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a great idea, and we're here, of course, at Dark Fringe Radio. We're going to help do anything that we can to help promote it, Jay, and we need to get this out to the kids. So yeah, please, if you guys are listening to the podcast now, check it out. Imagine Play with Coach Jay on YouTube, and we'll be having some content on there pretty soon. And it's going to be a part of a huge plan that me and Jay have here of creating a podcast network. And this is just the beginning of the first step of creating that basically universe of podcasts that we're going to be putting together. So
world dominance of digital podcasting.
It's going to be like exactly like a Thanos snap of fucking podcasting. That's what I want to do. So yeah, so that's the main plan. And Jay, we're going to support it. Again, Imagine Play with Coach Jay on YouTube. Check out that content for the kids, and I'm sure you guys won't be disappointed. So that's it for the intro, Jay. We have the mailbag to go to next. You ready to go do that?
Congratulations, Skippy. You've got mail.
Mailbag!
Oh, shit. So, yeah, we got a couple good things here for the mailbag this week, Jay. And we have a reoccurring mailbag, basically writer or submitter, I guess you could say. And that's David Gomez from Scottsdale, Arizona, giving us another Julian Assange update.
Yes.
Of course, yes. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was excited. I was looking forward to this.
Yeah, and I'm glad that David wrote in again. We didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks, but he then came on the third week here and gave us another update. But he says, "Hey guys, David again from Scottsdale, Arizona. Wanted to give you guys a quick Julian Assange update. There have been more developments this past week. This week, Mr. Assange was a no-show at court this morning because of grave concerns, quote-unquote, were raised about his health after he was moved to a medical ward in jail. Of course,
weird.
Didn't we talk about this, Jay, about if he's ever going to make it back to the U.S.?
I believe that was something that we talked about, Will.
Yeah, I think we kind of foreshadowed this because it really looks like he's not doing too well. So they're saying the WikiLeaks founder has been...
Weird.
Weird, right? Yeah. He's been expected to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court via video link from Belmarsh Prison in his fight against extradition to the United States over allegations that, of course, he conspired to break into a classified Pentagon computer. But Assange, of course, did not appear at the 5-minute hearing this morning, where Chief Magistrate Emma Arthurnot referred to the Australian as not very well, quote unquote. So she said a date of June 12th for the next hearing, and said that it may be a hearing that will take place in Belmarsh. It didn't happen, of course, as we know. And the defense lawyer for Assange, Per Samuelson, said that Julian Assange's health state last Friday was such that it was not possible to conduct a normal conversation with him. What say you there, Jay?
Not surprised.
But I mean, look at that.
We talked about this a few weeks ago, and we were curious as if he was even going to make it to court. And now it seems, before all this happened, he was in pretty good health. Just your average Joe. And now he can't even speak? Huh. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
Listen to that statement, though. That's a pretty harsh statement. Like, think about it. Defense lawyer for Assange, Per Samuelson, said that Julian Assange's health state was such that it was not possible to conduct a normal conversation. So what did they do to him, Jay? I mean, did they just like blast all his teeth out of his mouth, or what did they do? Just, mind screw him, like gave him like a mental lobotomy or something?
A distinct possibility. Or more likely, they've injected him with something that's attacking his central nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
That has issues with brain connectivity and speech patterns and, those kinds of fun things.
Well, yeah, listen, thanks again, David, for sending that Julian Assange update, and we do appreciate it. So, yeah, it doesn't look very good for Mr. Assange. So, we hope that he can actually get the justice that he deserves, but it doesn't even look like he's going to make it. So it's a very sad thing. But the next email comes from Hector Garcia from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I don't think we've had one from Philly yet, but the subject is Midsummer. And Hector writes, "Hello, Will and Jay. My name is Hector. I wanted to know if either you or Jay have seen the trailer for this horror movie called Midsummer. That's coming out July 3rd. It's been getting rave reviews. And if not, I recommended that you take a look at the 2 trailers that I have out now, which look pretty awesome. Anyways, I figured I'd let you guys know about it. Thanks again, Hector Garcia from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hector, thanks for sending in the email for this the mailbag this week. And no, I think I saw half the trailer for Midsummer. I think it was the same trailer for the same movie, but I'm not too sure. Have you heard of this movie, Jay?
I haven't. The trailers I've seen were not. I don't think they were horror related.
Yeah,
I'll have to check it out though.
Yeah.
I mean, that was cool.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Hector, for sending that in. We'll check it out and we'll let you know what we think of it. So we'll do that the week after. We'll give you a little update. So, all right. Well, that's it. Pretty short mailbag for this week, Jay. And we thank, of course, David for sending his in, and of course Hector for sending your submission for the mailbag. So that brings us to, of course, the next segment for the podcast is Will You Tell Me? So Jay, will you
I will tell you. I will tell you. Will, I will tell you.
Please.
I will tell you a question. Then you will tell me your answer. And that is how we do Will You Tell Me? So Will,
Yes.
both of us are fairly athletic.
Right.
We both play sports.
Right.
Both of us are somewhat intelligent.
Right.
And that brings us into the category of the Will You Tell Me.
Okay.
Now, there have been a lot of presidents who are very bright men, courageous men, and fair athletes. But only one of them, only one president, was both the president and is in the Hall of Fame of the sport in which he participated. Will you tell me the president and the sport, Will?
I will. I will tell you, actually, Jay. And his name is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he was in the boxing. He was a boxer. Many don't know that, but I think that's the answer. What do you say, Jay?
I said no.
Oh, sounded good.
Well, yes. FDR was known for his scrappiness and the fact that at one point he was a boxer. He actually started off his life a very frail boy So the scrappiness and boxing that he had, while amateur, was not good enough to land him in the Hall of Fame. We've had presidents who played football up to the collegiate level. We've had presidents who have been known for equestrian, fencing, but the one above all else, the most athletic of all presidents, was actually Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, wow.
Abraham Lincoln is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Holy shit. Abe Lincoln, huh?
He has 300 victories, 1 loss.
I wonder who that loss was to. Who was that guy?
John Wilkes Booth?
Oh, fuck. That was horrible. Disqualification. That's worse than that's worse than bringing a chair. That's worse than bringing a chair into the ring. It's just like, boom, no. That's horrible, Jay.
No contest right there. I'm pretty sure that's illegal equipment there, guy.
It's the ultimate.
You're nothing. You're loud.
It's the ultimate finishing move.
Yeah.
Jesus.
They don't get back up after the Booth screwdriver.
No, that's it. Oh, Lord. But, yeah, that's fucking interesting, Jay. I remembered that he was a wrestler, but I didn't know he was a champion or, like, a World Hall of Fame wrestler. I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's most interesting to find out about him. Not so much that he was a good wrestler, but so accomplished. 300 victories, 1 loss.
That's crazy, huh?
I mean, that's intense. That's a lot of matches. That's a lot of victories. Only 1 loss. I mean, that's insane.
And you got to think too. That was back in that time. So a fucking lot of like foul play went into play at that. Those old times. Come on. There was some eye gouging.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was some shit happening. Some eye raking.
Oh yeah. No, there was definitely people checking each other's oil all over the place.
Fish hooking, all that shit.
Yeah. The mat you're wrestling on is a little more than sawdust and. I can only imagine. There's no real rules for safety.
Nope.
It must have been fucking unbelievable. He was 300 victories and 1 loss.
Crazy. Impressive. Absolutely crazy. Well, listen, Jay, that's great for Will You Tell Me this week. Enlightened me again this week. I appreciate it. And again, that was Will You Tell Me. So we're going to get into of course, meat and potatoes of the podcast, and we're going to be talking about your scary stories that you submitted to us through our, of course, email, which you can send anything to us at thedarkfringe@gmail.com. Of course, you can send that again to thedarkfringe@gmail.com. Of course, you can send that to us. Give us your mailbag questions, anything you want regarding the podcast, any guest suggestions, anything at all. Just send it to us there anytime. I'll get back to you guys pretty quickly. So that's it for that, Jay, and let's move on for the listeners' ghost stories for this week.
Hey, this is Steve DeShavi, and you are listening to Dark Fringe Radio.
I'm Frederick Lauren, and I've rented the house on Haunted Hill tonight so that my wife can give a party. A haunted house party. She's so amusing. There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited. If any of you will spend the next 12 hours in this house, I'll give you each $10,000. Or your next of kin in case you don't survive. But here come our other guests.
All right. Thanks for joining in on the podcast, of course, this week. We're going to get into ghost stories from the submission of our listeners this week, Jay. And, of course, we're going to give us, a couple of our personal stories as well. But I wanted to start off with the listeners, and maybe I'll go off, maybe shoot one from the listeners and maybe go from one from you, and then we can go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds fantastic.
All right, so this one comes in, and it's called the Ouija story. And basically, it starts off, it says, it was the summer of 96, and it was better referred to me as the summer of hell. I can't help but to blame myself after all. I've watched plenty of horror movies to know all the basic rules, but even then I ignored the most important one. I was young and curious, so attracted to anything horror. I played with a spirit board by myself, and it wasn't enough that I had chanted spells and I found a spell book written in another language. So, frustrated at what I thought was a complete fail since nothing had happened, I continued on with this dangerous combo. After a few days have passed and things began to change, I started hearing strange sounds. For each night had went by, the evil entity became more aggressive. Some call it sleep paralysis, but I know it was an evil force holding me captive. I can hear the growling in my ear and the voices as it whispers at me, calling my name. I was terrified. I fought so hard to have just enough courage to open my eyes, then the fear would strike again and I would witness my own eyes, a hooded shadow figure by my bed, and a shadow figures darting in and out of the wall calling my name. And it was getting worse. I could feel that it was touching me. It actually touched my foot, and it wouldn't let me sleep. It was as if it was like getting stronger as every day went by. And I was so scared. And knowing that it was my fault, I didn't want to tell anybody, especially my father. All of my family had warned me about tampering with spirit boards and things of that nature. And I no longer felt safe in my own home. And every chance that I got, I tried to go somewhere hoping that this thing would not follow me. I distinctly remember several occasions where the evil had actually followed me. My aunt had asked me to stay with her and her family during the week to babysit my little cousin while she worked. I had fallen asleep and something had disturbed my sleep, and I opened my eyes to the light above me flickering off and on. I immediately felt a presence and I left the bedroom and I fell asleep on the couch for the rest of the night. Another night, I had a bad experience of the same exact thing, but this time, I left the room. I heard whispering coming by my cousin's bedroom as I passed by it, which was located right next to the living room. Confused and terrified, I started to wonder if my cousin had been babysitting, only to find out later that he was sleeping with his parents' room the entire night. I knew I had to dispose of the board when I heard a voice later that night say, "I will come back." And eventually we moved and I began to feel safe again. And the activity still happens from time to time, but I realized later that this quote-unquote thing wasn't part of the house. I summoned it, and it's attached to me. And I thought I was losing my mind until one day my older cousin had visited, and she also is a believer and has had her own experiences. We were, of course, exchanging stories one day of the strange events that have happened. And she distinctly said that she heard heavy breathing coming from upstairs. We both looked at each other, and she noticed that my dog turned towards me in the direction, turned towards the direction of the stairs, and she heard it too. And she had lived there prior to me, and she stated that she has never heard anything during that time of the residency. So, yeah, that's a fucking pretty good story, Jay. We hear stories like this all the time of people messing with, Ouija boards and stuff like that and not knowing what they're doing and actually getting things out of hand. And, next thing you know, they are not sleeping and they're having all these bad dreams. And, they've, obviously have summoned things that should not be there.
Spirit boards are fucking crazy. I inform my kids all the time. Do not play with those because we don't really know exactly how they work. We don't know exactly what we're contacting on the other side, and we don't exactly know how it's going to turn out and what their intentions are. So, yeah, you got to be careful with those things, guys.
Absolutely.
They're dangerous.
It's dangerous, and it really is. You don't know what you're messing with, and if not, used properly, it could be a very, 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 very problematic thing for you. So, yeah, listen, thanks for sending that story regarding the Ouija board. Jay, do you have any personal stories you can share with us tonight?
I have two that always stand out to me, and I'll tell from least scary to most scary, and by least scary I mean it still scared the piss out of me. I lived in Tennessee for a few years, and I had to go get my daughter from my, at the time, brother-in-law's house. So, in Tennessee, where I lived in Tullahoma. My brother-in-law lived in Manchester, and the fastest way from our house to his house was down this little 2-lane road that didn't have any lights and crossed multiple railroad tracks with no bar. It was called Old Tullahoma Highway, and I had picked up my daughter as I was driving back. I had to slow and stop for something. And at that moment, something caught my eye, and I looked to my right, and through my passenger window, I saw a Union soldier staring directly at me. Pale, sparsely grown beard, kind of grizzled and dirty face, very disheveled, and somewhat ethereal. Like you could see through him mostly.
I mean, of course, that
And he
area.
just stood there staring at me,
Uh-huh.
and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And at that point, something drew my attention away for not even half a second, and then it was gone. But just that stare, I'll never forget the feeling of those eyes glaring at me. Whew.
Wow. Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's something you'll never forget, I'm sure, right, Jay, for the rest of your life?
Yeah, nope, never even forget it.
Yeah, and of course, we know that area, of course, Tennessee, that, that a lot of the battles happened in that state, during the Civil War, and, a lot of that stuff happened there. A lot of that energy is still there. It has to be there. That all those people that died there, you have to think so many souls, were passed on from that area, all throughout, Tennessee, Virginia, all the way up through, North and South Carolina. It's just just chock full of all that energy, and it's just crazy to me that it still permeates, hundreds of years later. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. And yeah, it's a real live connection to the past. But again, it's a past that we don't understand, that we can't comprehend exactly what they're going through and what they're feeling and what their intentions are. But it's crazy that a moment can be so powerful, for either positive or negative, that it's almost like there's echoes, like ripples through time that will always touch that space. It's kind of fascinating, actually.
Very fascinating. Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and share a story. This is actually a story about my great-grandfather, and it was a story that was actually passed on by him, and that was told to, him, and then, of course, his daughter, which was my grandma, and then passed on from my grandma to my aunt and my dad. And so it's a story about my great-grandfather. He actually ran a tobacco farm. They would dry and, plant the tobacco, dry it, do all the whole processing, for the tobacco. Anyway, so he did that. That's what he did. And so he ran that operation, and one day he actually went into town. And you have to remember, this is my great-grandfather. We're talking about early 1900s, late 1800s, so we were talking about people still, going around town on horses and stuff like that, and that's exactly what he did. He actually went into town and went in to gamble for, a little bit for the night. Did that, went in and gambled, and had a couple drinks. Nothing of the abnormal. Just a normal night. And as he's taking off from the gambling spot, basically, he sees his beautiful woman. She's holding a parasail, like one of those umbrellas, like those old school ones. So he decides he's gonna follow her because she looks at him as of this weird thing, this connection happened, right? So he decides to follow her, and so she just. As she's, walking away, she just keeps walking, and it just seems to get faster and faster. He just can't keep up to her for some reason. So she, she makes a left turn around this corner, and then, it leads into a cemetery. All right. And then he's going through the cemetery looking for this woman, and he can't see any. I mean, she was there. He knew for a fact that she was there, Jay. And,
right.
He's going around through the cemetery on horseback, and looking, nothing. Can't find her nowhere, Jay. Nowhere to be seen. And finally, he comes back to the entrance of the cemetery. And as he's getting towards the entrance, he could see her, but from the back. She had her back turned towards him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't know what to do. So he got off his horse, and he basically led his horse with him as he walked towards her, right? So he had the horse and the reins, and basically was walking towards her. So as he gets to her, he puts his hand on her shoulder, turn her around. And as he does that, her face is just a skeleton. And then all of a sudden, her body just started to grow up really tall. Taller and taller and taller and taller. So she was 20 or 30 feet tall, Jay. And then he basically passed out from that sight.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And so, that was a story that's been passed down for many years. My aunt taught me that story when I was a kid. That happened to my great-grandfather. It's a story that, of course, I'll pass on to my children. But yeah, that happened in Puerto Rico, Jay, many, many years ago. And yeah, pretty crazy story, huh?
Mierda.
Exactly, exactly. So, all right, let's get to the next listener submission. And this one is labeled the Voodoo Zombie Story, Jay. And this comes,
Okay.
yep, this one comes from a listener who says, I am the descendant of Haiti. And there were many stories and a lot of controversy regarding my family and my family history. It was said that my great grandfather had zombies. He was a wealthy landowner and man that used them to work the fields, basically. To make them, he had a voodoo priest make the transition for these people. And after being buried, they would be pulled out of the ground as shells of their former self. And somebody taught me once how to tell if somebody is a zombie or not. And it's basically all in the eyes, Jay. This guy writes, he says, I can't remember exactly what they told me, only that there is an emptiness in there, basically, in their eyes, in their soul. They basically mindlessly walk around doing their master's bidding, and I have seen some walking around when I was growing up, not knowing any difference. Now looking back, I know better. My great grandfather had a lot of them, supposedly, and they would work the fields as slaves to his, as their, to the master. And but sometimes, something would cause the voodoo magic to kind of wear off, and that kind of is like when things kind of went awry, Jay. And it was usually caused by like an encounter with a past loved one. So that person would always like, a past loved one would come back and see them, and all of a sudden, and it would kind of like trigger something in their, in their psyche, kind of like almost snapping them out of it. Basically, once they have that trigger, that that past memory, that's when things start to go, like I said, again, crazy. And so one of my grandfather's zombies, as he says, had something like this happen to him, and the zombie tried to actually kill him. He says that his mother was there, and she told me the story a few times, and she said that her grandfather had to stop the zombie by killing him and by cutting off the zombie's head right in front of her. So that's a pretty interesting story there, Jay, regarding zombies and voodoo from Haiti.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard that Haiti is quite the mystical island, so it doesn't surprise me that stories like that would permeate from that area. Yeah, I mean, pros and cons. Nobody's getting hurt by keeping a zombie as a slave. I mean, it's not exactly like they know they deserve certain rights or anything like that. And the people who are related to slave zombies think that they're dead, so they don't know any better.
No, they don't.
You don't have to pay them or feed them. They don't get tired. They don't need lunch breaks. I mean,
yeah.
Say what you will. It might be mindless, but their work ethic would be fairly kick-ass.
Just need a whole zombie crew, huh? Just working for you. Well, that's what this letter was about. That's pretty interesting. I mean, of course, we know that voodoo is very prominent there in Haiti, and of course, like Jamaica and other areas, and those islands like that. And we always hear stories of this, like and it's been sensationalized, of course, in Hollywood. If anybody has ever seen The Serpent in the Rainbow, that's a great. Well, not so great, halfway great zombie films, voodoo zombie film with Bill Pullman by actually, surprising fact, he was actually in that movie. But yeah, Bill Pullman is actually really good. Actually half good, like I said. But yeah, so that was a great story. Great story regarding zombies and voodoo in Haiti. So Jay, you got one more story for us?
I do. And this is the scariest paranormal story I have. I've had a few other paranormal encounters aside from the one I shared tonight. But this one, by far, in a way, takes the cake. When I was in high school, I had this friend named Lynn. And I told the story on the podcast before, and I'll tell it again. Mm-hmm. She was a very sweet girl, very attractive girl, and she was riding in a car, and in Del Rey, there's a road called Lake Ida, and it comes to a very sharp curve. And Lynn's boyfriend didn't stop or didn't slow down. Car started to roll. She was tossed from the car, actually landed on top of her. So it's a pretty tragic way to go.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And so young. I want to say she was 17.
Yeah, that's too young, dude. Too young.
It's way too young. Way too young. So time goes on, and every night before I go to bed, I I say a little prayer to people I love and people I've lost and people I miss, and she was always part of those prayers. You know, when she's just resting and happy, and you know that she's not forgotten. And it's probably 5 years after her funeral. I was laying in bed with my at the time fiance, my now ex-wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I was laying there, kind of falling, starting to drift off to sleep, and I felt hands on my shoulders, and I looked over my shoulder, and I saw her face,
Wow.
and she whispered in my ear, "Thank you." Now, even though it was someone I knew or know, that person had been dead for 5 years,
Right.
and the really crazy thing is I was laying on my back, so essentially I'm laying on my back, and I felt the hands come up above my shoulders from behind me,
Right.
so in my bed.
That's weird.
It was very, very strange. I shot out of bed, standing on the wall, whispering to my fiance, you know, "Babe, baby, wake up."
Right.
You know, but that was, it sends shivers down my spine. Again, I'm sure it was a good message. I really don't think I had anything to fear.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just the suddenness of it, the startling of it, and it struck me deep down in my soul. Like I felt it. I know for sure that she was there. She'd been dead. It was a positive message, but still, the hands on the shoulders, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, those experiences again. Like I said earlier, those are the things that happen that you'll never forget. Those moments when you have those paranormal experiences. Those things go into a special file in your brain that just kind of gets seared into your psyche. But yeah, Jay, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, it's a tragic thing that happened to that poor girl. Yeah, a very, very tragic thing. And it sucks that somebody lost their life at such a young age. So, yeah, last one I wanted to bring up, Jay, is a story that actually happened between me, my cousin, and my brother. And one day, my uncle decided to take us for a visit. He needed to go visit a friend of his, and he took me, my brother, and of course my cousin. And so we end up at this house basically out in 441. And this, just to let the listeners know how to give a basic paint a picture of what I'm talking about. Basically, at the time, that road was basically like a two-way dirt road at that time. Because at the time, I was only maybe 14, 15. So that road was basically a two-lane dirt road, and there was a lot of old houses, a lot of old farmhouses that were dilapidated, just horrible, falling apart, just things like that. Mixed in between decent houses. It was just kind of a weird thing. But anyways, so we decided to go out to his friend's house, and of course, us being boys, we decided to go out in the woods, right? It's a natural thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, go exploring and shit. So. We get to this house, actually, Jay, that's actually, it was just out in the middle of the woods, and all the doors and the windows are boarded up. Like, there's plywood, nails, boarded up, nothing. There's no way of getting in this place. So, of course, it intrigued the shit out of us, and we decided, hey, listen, you know what we're going to do? We're going to try to find a way in here, right? Of course, naturally, right? That's what boys do. So,
of course, because that sounds like a good thing to do.
Exactly. We look around the house, and we decided that maybe we can try to get into the garage. There were some areas in the garage door that was actually, the garage door was made out of wood, like those old school garage doors, Jay. And part of the wood panels were actually kind of broken off. So we were thinking, hey, listen, if we can knock a couple of these panels off, we could actually get through that way and go through the garage. Well. So we're trying to figure out a way to try to get into the garage to these panels. And my brother decides, of course, being a brute, he decides to go kick it, right? And fucking kicks it.
Right.
Yeah. And his foot goes right through. But then when his foot goes right through, he says that he can't get his foot out, like something's holding him. So he's basically laying there on the floor, screaming bloody murder. And he's trying to pull his leg out. And he's saying that something's pulling him in. And, you know, he pulls his leg out finally. And we're just like, I don't know if it was that he felt like something was pulling him in or his foot got stuck. It could have been one of the two things. But he said that he felt like his foot was being pulled in. But anyways, so we decided we're not going to go down that route. We were like, okay. Yeah, we said, okay. Yeah, that plan A is not going to happen. So we decided not to do that one. So we're like, fuck. Okay, how are we going to get in this house, right? So I said, okay, well, there's a side door that has 2 pieces of plywood where the middle glass part would be in this door, right? So I said, fuck it. I'm going to bum rush this thing. So I bum rush the thing. Fucking both pieces come flying off, right? So we get in. Finally, we get into the side door where the garage is. So all of a sudden, there was this horrible smell, Jay. I don't even know how to describe this smell. And there was flies all over the place, which was very surprising to me because the whole fucking place was boarded up pretty fucking good. So I don't know how the fuck flies were in there. And it was it was like infested with flies. Once we get in, we get to this area where of course, the garage meets the main part of the house, and we open the door, and all of a sudden, all you can see, Jay, is like these hand marks, these bloody hand marks just going down on a wall like that. That's the first thing we see when we walk in. And then to the right is the living room, and it's all flooded with clothes, just fucking scattered all over the place, but it's flooded at the same time. So we're like, what the fuck is going on in this place, right? So as we look to the left where the staircase is, my brother says that he saw a skeleton, a face of a skeleton. And at that point, he fucking let out the biggest scream of his entire life and ran the fuck out of there so fast. And of course we followed. Yeah, of course we followed him because we didn't know what the fuck he saw. But to this day, he will tell you that he saw a face like a skeleton in that house and basically had to take off. Later to find out, when we get back to the house from our adventuring, of course, we start talking to, of course, my uncle's friend that we came to visit. And he tells us, of course, after the fact that house was boarded up and condemned because a man actually killed 4 people in that house. So, take it as it be. But, of course, having those experiences in that house, there's had to be, of course, some kind of bad energy there. We saw it, for ourselves, we experienced it. And, of course, we find out later it was all validated by what we found out, from my uncle's friend. So, yeah, that was a pretty interesting thing that happened to, of course, me, my cousin, and my brother. A story that, the 3 of us can retell, just like I told you today, like it happened yesterday. It's, again, one of those things that never leaves your brain, as I said before. So listen, that's it for the scary stories. Hopefully that was something to at least bring up the hairs in your arms a little bit for tonight. So we do appreciate it. And we're going to get into the outro. But first, of course, before we do that, Jay, as customary, as always, we have to do What to Watch. And, of course, Jay, what are we going to talk about for What to Watch this week?
My What to Watch is on Netflix, the show called Historical Roast. And I was going to actually supply this one last week, and then, of course, I got caught off guard by something that was crazy funny. I'd only seen the first half of the episode, but I was enjoying it. And the first episode that I saw was actually an Abraham Lincoln one. They had Bob Saget play Abraham Lincoln, and they had John Stamos playing John Wilkes Booth.
That's yeah.
That's not a good enough setup for you.
Oh yeah, it's a great setup, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a great show, man. I actually accidentally found it. It is a great show. Oh, it's hilarious, and of course Jeff Ross as the roast master of all these, and of course he's the best when it comes to roast mastering. Excuse me. Did
you get a chance to see the Diary of Anne Frank?
No, I did not get to see that one. I didn't. I want to see.
They roasted Anne. Honestly, it's the funniest of all of them.
Really, it was that one? Okay. Yeah, because the one I saw, the one I saw of Rosa Parks wasn't that funny. It was funny. It had its parts, but it just kind of fell flat to me. I don't know, for some reason.
Yeah, the Rosa Parks one wasn't great.
Yeah.
That's true.
The highlight of that one though is that Jaleel White played Mandela. And if you guys know
Yeah,
who
he also plays Muhammad Ali.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
That's great.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for me, the highlight of all of them is the fact that it was the Anne Frank. John Lovitz's SDR is great, but then you have Gilbert Gottfried plays Hitler.
A Jewish person playing Hitler. That's great.
Not just a Jew, and they actually say it. They go, hey, Hitler. Not only did you not eradicate all of us, we found the loudest, most obnoxious one of us to be you.
Yes, exactly, with that voice. I love it, dude. He's just so, like, as soon as he starts talking, you just cannot help but to laugh. Gilbert Gottfried.
You cannot.
Yeah. He just has that voice. All right. Well, okay, cool.
You can imagine having to be around that all the time.
Oh, my God. It'd be horrible. Well, listen, that's awesome, Jay, for what to watch. Thanks for the suggestion. We're going to get into the outro. Of course, just wanted to remind everybody how to listen to the podcast. Check out our website, darkfringeradio.wordpress.com. Check out that website right there. You can link up to any one of the sources to listen to the podcast: Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, all those good ones. So you can check it out there. It'll take you right to it. And, of course, the social media. Again, you can check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Dark Fringe Radio. And, of course, last thing I wanted to plug for tonight was Imagine Play with Coach Jay. Check that out on YouTube. There'll be new content coming there in the future. And, of course, our podcast network that'll be coming out pretty soon. So, Jay, that's it for the outro for tonight. Anything you want to add?
No, man, just everybody keep on supporting us, keep on sending us stuff, keep on partaking in these conversations. These are how things grow. This is how movements happen. This is how awakeness is built and bred. So please keep it all coming. We can't thank you guys enough.
Absolutely. And thank you again for listening to the podcast, telling friend or foe about us, and continue to please spread the word. And check out our YouTube channel, too. That's also another thing I didn't promote here tonight, but please check out our YouTube channel. We're trying to get more subscribers on that, so check us out there, of course, at Dark Fringe Radio. Okay, well, that's it for tonight, Jay. Again, I am Will Martinez with my co-host, Jay Galosi. Thanks for coming on the podcast, and thanks for joining us tonight, and have a good night.
Shadow of the end of the world. I would never do love, but I would call it become. Can't express me still, can't express me still. The absolution. Can't express me still, can't express me still. The absolution of love. It's a precious baby, it's a precious baby. That's what you are. It's a precious baby. Next time you say don't talk, I say you talk because no one's late in life. I need to compromise my life and I say that you always are. But that's sad because can't express myself, can't express myself. Because can't express myself, can't express myself. The absolution. It's a precious baby, it's a precious baby. That's what you